You are Locked On Coogs, your daily podcast on the Houston Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked On Coogs here, Parker Ainsworth, and I am going to move into talking a little bit about basketball as the Houston Cougars had a pair of Blue Ribbon College Yearbook preseason All-Americans. Now, the Blue Ribbon College Yearbook is one of the first national publications every year to put out their preseason All-Americans and awards. Houston has two this year, and for what it's worth, Houston had two last year with LJ Cryer and Juwan Roberts. Also, both on this list, Marcus Sasser was a first-teamer on this list back in 2022 for the 2022-23 season. And I think it's interesting to see that a lot of times, I know Roberts didn't quite finish in the same kind of, in terms of a lot of the honors he did, but didn't quite finish what Cryer did at the end of the year. This is a pretty indicative list of who ends up being, assuming health and consistency, an All-America at the end of the year, right? This is a pretty strong indicator year over year. And I think what's interesting in looking at this is the two guys that they have this year, Emmanuel Sharp and Jojo Tugler, being nominated or being, I guess, recognized as preseason All-Americans, kind of directly replace the guys that were on this list last year, and LJ Cryer and Juwan Roberts. Now, I think Emmanuel Sharp and LJ Cryer feels like an even swap. Last year, Emmanuel Sharp averaged 12.6 points per game on 8.9 field goals attempted, but was the most outstanding player in the regional, was the most outstanding player in the Big 12 tournament, right? Was a very, very impactful player, impacted winning more than the 12.6 points per game, I think, details, right? The timing of his baskets was certainly part of that. The gut-wrenching way in which he would knock down that right corner three, or the right elbow three, was important. You do lose Cryer's 12.5 field goals a game and his 15.7 points per game, but I think Sharp grows into that nicely. It almost becomes a direct flip-flop where he gets those shots, maybe one or two more shots, gets those points, maybe one or two more points, and someone replaces him. It kind of feels like a trickle-down effect in terms of Sharp replacing Cryer. They both are dynamic shooters. They do more than just shoot, but shoot the ball very well, obviously. Maybe undersized at the NBA level, but certainly not undersized at this level. I would almost argue that Sharp is a stronger defender than LJ Cryer. LJ grew a lot as defender at Houston. That's not to be a knock on him, especially considering the growth he made between his time at Baylor and his time at Houston. But Sharp is a very strong defender, and I think that helps his status on this list as well, and kind of moving into that role. Interestingly, Jojo Tugler, I don't think does the same kind of statistical swap or grows into the role of Juwan Roberts. I think he just gets better in his own role, and I think that's what's interesting here is like the same tit for tat, forward for forward move. You would think, okay, last year, Juwan Roberts had 10.5 points per game on 9 field goals and 6.5 rebounds. Jojo Tugler had 5.5 points per game on 4 field goal attempts and almost 6 rebounds per game. That seems like an easy, simple growth. And I bet from an offensive statistics perspective, Jojo Tugler does not get up to 9 shots per game unless it's a bunch of putback dunks, which would be sweet, frankly. I don't think that's his role. I think where you'll see is he'll probably snatch up those rebounds and maybe a little bit more. And you'll see a really high field goal percentage because it's a lot of layups and dunks. And you're going to see a guy that legitimately competes for Defensive Player of the Year, nationally Defensive Player of the Year. And I think that will be the defensive anchor kind of role he fills for one of America's best defenses year in and year out. I actually see the offensive production, those field goals and points, going to someone like Chris Sinek. I see it going to Chase McCarty in small ball. Jacob McFarland being a little bit more offensively involved as a big man. I see those going to other spots in the forward room and center room. I don't see those, even Javier Francis, I don't see going to Jojo Tugler because bluntly, that's not what they need him to grow into. They just need him to be a consistent presence on defense. And I say it to say that he needs to play as many minutes as he can. The only gripe I've ever had about JoJo, obviously it'd be great if he shot free throws better, but whatever. The only real gripe I've ever had is like, I need you on the floor 40 minutes a game if possible. Like I need you on the floor with the energy, the motor, the length, shot deterrence, let alone shot deflections. I need on the floor every single minute I can get. And honestly, there's been games where he's in foul trouble, and his over enthusiastic response to things will get him in foul trouble, get 2 or 3 in a quick short stretch, and then it's time to play Javier and Juwan together. Well, now those 2 guys are gone, and the guys coming in behind Jojo are young. And so the biggest growth I think that happens for Jojo is knowing when to choose his spots for those moments. And that comes with growth and maturity, total faith in the staff. Casey Beard and Kellen Sampson both work with the bigs, 4s and 5s, I guess 5s and 4s respectively. I think that you're going to see a lot of maturity in that way. And really, I mean, think about the impact he had last year as Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year. If he played another 8 minutes a game, dear Lord, would people score? Could Houston pitch a shutout for nearly an entire half? I mean, it felt like they did for stretches of some important games in March and April. Does Jojo Tugler bring that kind of presence? Further, it begs the question, to be as good as you were last year, if Tugler's not going to pick up the offensive slack that Juwan Roberts had, it's got to come from someone else in that forward room. I think they're all capable. The question is just where. Because the truth is that Juwan Roberts, yes, 10.5 points per game, 9.1 field goals attempted. That's decent production. There's no way to cut that short. The timing, the settling nature of his 10.5 points per game, I think is more important. And I say that because honestly, I feel like when they need, things are getting a little racket, they need a go-to bucket. They threw it to Juwan on the block and said, go to work with the left-hand hook, buddy. Who's got that move? Is it Sinak? Right? As a dynamic and offensive player, can he do that as a freshman? Is it McFarland, who came in very highly touted? Is it McCarty in small ball? Where does that go, right? Where is that consistency? Is it somewhere else? Is it not a forward, right? Is it not the hang your hat on play, not a forward this year? Not a J1. I mean, you had J1 last, it feels like a decade. It's not quite a decade, but where does it go? And that, I think, is the bigger question. Not does JoJo do it, because I don't think that's what they need him to do. But we'll talk about more on all of that, I'm sure, throughout the preseason leading up to Houston Cougar basketball season. We're in a bye week of football season, though, and that means recruits are visiting campus. Basketball recruits, big-time basketball recruits. I want to talk about a little bit of that in 1 second. Before we get too far, today's show is brought to you by our buddies over at Monarch Money, because most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth. Look, whether it's 401ks, properties, investments, you don't have the full picture. You can end up leaving money on the table. It's whether it's Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool. Helps bring your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you put off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all of your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. And as a history teacher, that sounds great. Listen, I said I teach, I coach, I podcast. Wife's got her sources of income too. All of our things needed a place to sit, settle, and be visual for us to see where we needed to put what and allocate what. Monarch Money does all of that on my phone. And it's really, really simple and easy to use. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. It's 50% off your first full year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONCollege.